And I think you highlighted on something super important. Young athletes do need the guidance. So why is it important to carefully assemble a trusted team around them, even at a young age, for things like you said, navigating your brand and social media and how to capitalize on that, early on, all the way to things just of how to operate as an adult,
right. Look, we pride ourselves on building like that ecosystem that's so vital to the success. You're building any corporation, it's vital that you have the right team around you. You building any business, it's vital that you have the right CFO, CMO, CEO running the company, and advisory board as well. These young people are basically businesses. They are their own corporation. Some of them are generating, initially if they get drafted in the first round, they're generating millions of dollars immediately. So that's a great revenue to start with. Well, if you're going to have that much revenue to start with and looking at yourself as a corporation, you need to create the org chart or have someone like the collective help you create the org chart. So now you have your CEO, your C-suite people who are going to help you oversee some of the businesses that you might have. You're going to have your CMO, which can help you in your branding. You're going to have your chief philanthropic officer who's going to help you find those things within the community that you either grew up in or the community that you're about to go in and play your respective sport in. What are the great organizations there to be involved in? You're going to have your chief operating officer, to make sure that those things are all working collectively that funnel back to helping the brand yourself be successful. And that ecosystem is vital. Having the right PR person to help you see some of these pitfalls that can occur beforehand. You have to have somebody talking to you about those issues that arise. Everyone, when you get drafted, or if you're a high-profile athlete, everyone knows who you are now, early.
They're sticking a mic in your face immediately.
Exactly, and because of your social media following. So you have those people who are not always well-intentioned trying to get to you, sliding you the DMs, whatever that might be, coming up to you after your AAU circuit game, kind of find a way to nuzzle up a little bit closer to your mom or your dad or your brother. Like, that happens the entire time. So your gatekeepers that you put in place that are going to be your quote-unquote bad cops, those need to be trusted people right out from the beginning. And then those people who are your gatekeepers or your trusted folks, they need to find some of those other professionals who've kind of gone down this path with the agency representation, the management, the endorsement, the marketing, those things that come later after you get drafted. So that ecosystem is vital, and it's hard nowadays because you don't know what everybody's intentions are. But it's very important that you find those trusted advisors, and then that they understand, because not every advisor who is your mom or your dad, they've raised you, but yet they sometimes don't know that there's bad actors out there who are just trying to nuzzle up closer to them to get to their child.
Yep.
And then you need to make sure that your parents understand that they have to go and find the right people to continue to build that ecosystem of trusted advisors around you.
So when you go into these meetings, is there a conversation prior to, so the athlete has the autonomy to make their own decision? Mm-hmm. And I feel like you have said over and over that you don't push the athlete any type of direction. You just present credible resources that they can use if they so choose. So before you go into these conversations, what are you giving? What tidbits are you giving them? Things to look out for, questions to ask, even topics that are important that they should understand. What advice are you giving them before they go into these meetings, and their families as well, because we're all at the table together at this point.
More times than not, because especially if they're in college, they're busy playing their collegiate basketball schedule. So you're really talking to their parents more so than you're talking to the athlete. What will happen is you'll either, you'll be having the conversation with the parents, getting the parents up to speed about the process. And then if it's going to be a process about, okay, we're hearing that he is going to get drafted in the first round, or he might be a second round pick as well. Then you need to bring in the clarity to the family, like what that means kind of financially, where those first round contracts are guaranteed in the NBA. Those second ones aren't necessarily guaranteed. So you start having the conversation with the parents, like, okay, these are the things that we need to make sure. One, depending upon what agency they choose to go with. By the way, they don't have to go with an agent. They can go with a great attorney because that first contract is guaranteed anyway. There is no negotiation depending upon where you get selected in the first round. It is what it is. So an attorney can maybe handle that for you. So we can sit down with an attorney if you would like to do that, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Secondarily, while we're sitting down with finding out who is going to be the representation, we also want to make sure that we're sitting you down with who's going to help manage those assets for your son when they have been drafted. So you start just kind of dropping the seeds in the family, and they might have a prior banking relationship. Some of these families are sophisticated, so they kind of understand. They might have a prior banking relationship somewhere, and then we'll say, you know what, we should maybe, and I know we've spoken, but we should maybe audit who those people are, what they've done in the past, what their track record is, why, if John gets drafted, why he should potentially go work with them. That's fine that you have that relationship, but let me just please assure you that you should also be talking to other people who've been doing this for a lot of years as well, who can help educate you about the varying different degrees of the type of financial services that are out there for you. So we tee it up prior, so when they go into the meeting, they either, one, they fully get a blueprint of who we're sitting them down with. So they know, like, okay, this is why we feel this institution is great for your son. And then we take them through the process of, typically we sit people down in front of 5 different groups, 5 different agencies, as well as 5 different financial advisory services, businesses as well. And we have no vested interest other than we know that we've gotten it to these tight 5. And mind you, they might have their 1 or their 2. Then we allow them to keep those 1 or their 2, obviously, but yet still sit with these 5. And then when it's all said and done, we'll do the positives, negatives, pros, and cons to that.
I like that you are treating it as an interview process for a business, that you want the athlete to think of themselves as a business. And so you got to go through that interview process. You got to hire your HR people. I like that you are putting practical coaching measures around how the athlete should view themselves. I think that's very important. But how do they identify who to trust? Because money can either be the best thing that happened to them or it can be the worst. And so figuring out who to trust when you come from a community like myself where you've been taken advantage of or you've never seen any type of wealth that no one in your family has either. Right. And so sometimes you don't even feel like you could trust your parents,
Right.
And so how do you coach that athlete to learn who they can trust, one, and to what extent they can trust them?
Mm-hmm. Great question, and it's a difficult, and it's a nuanced answer, probably because you can really only do it initially by the track record of the people that I'm sitting you down in front with. Mm-hmm. Even getting them to say, hey, can you call XYZ client and can I reach out to them just so I can get the feedback.
Check your references.
Right, your reference check to make sure that what you're saying to me in a sales basically closing pitch is exactly what you really do. And if that person comes back to you and says, and the fraternity in sports is super small. Mm-hmm. So hopefully the guys that you're calling on who said that they work with said management firm, they say that person does a great job. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes you'll find that that's not necessarily the case. We've had it even where we've told parents to feel comfortable asking the question when you're sitting in a management group, a financial services company or an agency representation. Well, who would you send your daughter or your son to work with? Who would manage your money if it wasn't your company that you work with? And then you'll get a handful of answers from that as well, which allows you to do kind of the reference check. That's the only way really to do it. And then you have to really be minding your monthly statements and not, and like if you're going to drill down to just that point, when you select an advisor, make sure that those quarterly calls are actually set those monthly calls are actually set, that someone's minding those conversations. If there's any questions that arise that you're confused with, well, why did we transfer this amount of money to this account? Is that part of our overall investment strategy? Like, those are the questions that you have to feel comfortable asking, and hopefully you'll get a good answer behind why someone might do that. And then also not signing away when the people put the paperwork in front of you, like signing away the fact that they can make all the decisions without you being aware of it is a big deal. Like, you should still be making sure that you are checking, or someone on your team of that ecosystem that you built is making sure that they're watching every penny, every dime, and how it's being navigated across the different investment vehicles that are out there.
Where should the athletes start when assessing any investment opportunity that is brought to them? Should they go to their financial advisor? Should they be asking questions or having strategic meetings before that? Where do they start in that process?
I think both ways. I think they should, one, they get a business proposal, because everyone's post-game, locker room, even their teammates. And because you trust your teammates, again, it kind of goes back to the conversation. One teammate can take a higher risk on the things that they invest in versus you being a newer, I'm staying with the young people, you being a newer athlete can't invest the same way that someone else can. And you have to make sure that you're vetting that process. So yes, I think you definitely need to take it to your financial advisory team, which is, in this case, you're the business, so your CFOs, to take a look at it and vet it to make sure that it's actually a real viable business. Two, I think you need to take it to your attorney, because you still, even if you have an agent, you also have an attorney as well. You should always have an attorney on call in some capacity to make sure that what you are potentially investing in also makes some sense. And then look, as I talk about what we do as a management firm, I mean, we look at opportunities as well. And there's a time and place for where you can kind of take those other business, restaurants, clubs, things that, car washes, things that people are throwing ideas on, fashion brands, store the money there. Give it to someone who can always be your no person. And when you get approached by someone, hey, thank you, because a lot of it's family. Hey, thank you, John. Thank you, David. Thank you, Susie. Thank you for giving this to me. I have to send it to my team. My team has to take a look at it, and then I'll have someone from my team kind of give you a call back. I handle playing basketball. That's what I do. My team handles this, so I'm going to send it to them, and then one of them will get back to you on that. So is that cool with you? Yeah. You have to put that barrier and use your team as a reason for you to... Say it again?
A buffer for that.
Yeah, you have to put a buffer. So, because they're the front-facing person of the business, and it's hard for young people to say no, and they don't want to offend friends, and they don't want to offend colleagues and associates. So if you just allow them the opportunity, like, I'll take it, but I'm going to let my team look at it, and then they'll get back to you. And then you can feel free to go knock down jumpers.
Yeah.
And still go hang out with your friend at the bar, at the restaurant.
And there's no problem.
And there's no problems. It's not awkward.
Right.
Because that's how it should be set up.